Hi, I'm Russell Bowyer and I'm from Scuba Diving Earth, and today I'm going to talk about what these 4 items that can be found in a house have got to do with scuba diving. So we've got some toothpaste, ordinary toothpaste. We've got some Johnson's baby shampoo. Now I admit that's not in probably everyone's house, but it certainly might be in where parents have got children. Talcum powder, again the same, but some people have talcum powder anyway. And this bottle. Now I'm going to leave this bottle till the end because this is actually one of the most important aspects to scuba diving, and it will come clear why I'm going to be talking about a bottle which has got, at this point in time, all you can see, it's got some clear fluid in it. But I'll leave that till the end because I think that's the most important. These are important, but this is the most important. So I'm going to put that to one side for the minute. I'm also going to put these two to the side for 1 minute, and I'm going to talk about toothpaste. So what on earth has toothpaste got to do with scuba diving? Well, scuba diving masks. When you first get your dive mask, there can be some residue from the factory on the inside of the mask. And one of the important things when you're scuba diving is that when you put the mask on and when you dive down, because the water hitting the outside of the mask is colder, what can happen is the inside fogs up. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, if you're scuba diving and the inside of your mask is fogged up, you can't see anything, and that will spoil the dive. I mean, it won't stop you diving, but it will really spoil it because you can't see what you're doing. I mean, you can clear it when you're under the water, and I can tell you how to do that, but what you want to be able to do is go down with a clear mask and for it to stay clear for the whole dive. Now, when you get it from the factory, well, you don't get it from the factory, you'll get it from a dive shop or online. The residue, the best way to get rid of that is to use toothpaste. And all you do is you just take a small amount of toothpaste and make sure it's not abrasive. This is just a bog stand and it's Colgate. I'm not advertising Colgate, but it could be anyone. And just smear a very small amount on the inside of the mask, let it dry, and then rinse it off afterwards. But make sure you do rinse it off properly because you don't want to be getting toothpaste in your eyes, that's for sure. So that's a tip. Just to clear your mask and get it ready when you buy a brand new mask, because if you're new to scuba diving, you're a beginner diver, what have you, novice, this will be probably one of the first things you buy, and I think it's important that you do have one. So that deals with toothpaste and masks. The next item that I'm going to show you is baby shampoo. Now what's that got to do with scuba diving? Well, again, it's to do with your mask. Now, this mask you've now cleaned with your toothpaste. Just before you go diving, you want to put something on the inside of your mask to stop it fogging up. Now, a lot of people, myself included, if they haven't got something like this or any other defogging agent, if you like, is they spit. Sounds horrible, but it works. On the inside of your mask, smear it around, rinse it out. Now, whoops, that's my dry suit. Sorry, it just fallen on the floor there. Not everyone wants to do that, and when you're on a dive boat or liveaboard and everyone's spitting, it's just not very nice. So this is where this comes in handy. All you need is literally 1 or 2 drops on the inside of your mask, and again, make sure you smear it on the whole of the glass, on the inside of the glass, and then rinse it out. Now, the reason I suggest Johnson's Baby is because it's hypoallergenic, can't say that word, so it won't hurt you, but I wouldn't suggest that you get concentrated shampoo in your eyes because it can sting a bit. I have done it, and admittedly it does sting and might give you slightly red eyes. It won't harm you or anything like that, but also what you want to do is rinse out as much as possible. And whilst this won't damage or harm fish and so on in the water, there's no evidence that it would do that. The more you can rinse off before you dive, the better. Don't wash it off because of course you want a very small amount to be left on there to stop it fogging up. So that's why baby shampoo. Other people talk about using washing up liquid. Again, I wouldn't recommend washing up liquid. It works, but again, get washing up liquid in your eyes, again, that would sting. And you can buy specific defogging stuff from dive shops and everything like that, which you can do, and then you just spray that or put the liquid on the inside of your mask, and that works just as well. So the third item was talcum powder. And what on earth has talcum powder got to do with diving, you might say? Well, now, if you're a beginner diver or you've just started out, or if you are diving in warm waters, this probably won't apply to you. However, you never know. You may decide to go somewhere where there's cold enough waters where, for example, you might need to use a dry suit. So let me show you. I have a dry suit here. If you've never dived in a dry suit, or you've thought, maybe not even thought about it, this is just worth a consideration, because if you're just beginning on your diving adventures, if you like, there may be a time where you think, actually, I want to go to somewhere perhaps where the waters aren't so warm, but actually, it might need a dry suit. For example, somewhere like the Galapagos Islands. Now, there's certain times of year in the Galapagos Islands where the diving is better, but the waters are cooler, and it can get sort of around about 22 degrees, which, crikey, I think that's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit for my American and Canadian fellow divers. I think so. I'd have to check that. But places like that, in certain times of the year, sort of September, I think it's the coldest in the Galapagos Islands, you probably would be better off with a dry suit rather than a thicker wetsuit. I mean, you probably need to compare that to, say, like a 7mm wetsuit. But actually out on some of the outer islands, the water can drop down as low as sort of 16 to 18 degrees, and that's in the 60s, probably about 65, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold, and a dry suit comes in handy. Anyway, that aside, what you use talcum powder for is to help putting these cuff seals and your neck seal on. And you put a bit of talcum powder in there, and it helps you put your hand through to avoid ripping this quite delicate material around the wrist cuffs. Another way of doing that, if you don't want to use talcum powder, you can actually put a plastic bag over your hand, and then what you can do is you put a hand and a fist in the plastic bag and put that through, and the plastic bag will help. But I've always used this. But a little bit of a tip, particularly if there's a wind blowing, be thoughtful of your other dive companions on the boat. Do not start putting this out, because it's very fine dust, and if your fellow colleagues or fellow divers are downwind from you, they'll get a face full and an eye full of talcum powder. So just be careful when you use this. Put it down low when you're putting it on, so you're not sort of flapping it around everywhere and you get a big dust cloud, and your dive buddies will be coughing and they won't thank you for it. So that's the third item. Now, those three items, whilst they're important for diving and they're more sort of to make diving that little bit better and easier, they're not crucial. What I'm about to talk about now is this. I'm hoping this is going to work to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to take the lid off this bottle. This will be an anticlimax if this doesn't work. Right, now I'm hoping you can now see those bubbles forming inside there. And can you see, hopefully, you can see those bubbles coming up from the bottom of the bottle to the top. And you can see it bubbling at the top there. See how it's all bubbling? So, I'm going to turn that off, or tighten that up again. So what has that got to do with diving? Well, it's one of the most important things that you learn when you're doing your diver training. And I think it's worthwhile going through this again, particularly as you're learning to dive, and particularly as you're getting more experience and going through it, is you have to be careful of decompression sickness. And what is decompression sickness? Well, decompression sickness is, to help describe what it is it happens when you come up too fast. And you probably already appreciate that when you go underwater, water is more dense, and the deeper you go, the heavier the water is, and that compresses. So, for example, between sea level and 10 meters, that's the biggest pressure change. So the difference between the pressure that you are probably watching this video, because I doubt whether you're watching this underwater now, and I am, if you dive to 10 meters, the pressure is twice that what we're experiencing now. And what happens is the air that you're breathing a percentage of which is nitrogen, that gets absorbed into your body and in your blood, and it goes all around your body. And then what happens is when you come up, that expands and it forms bubbles, and that's what causes decompression sickness. And depending on the seriousness of that is, well, how serious that is, it depends on where those bubbles end up. If it ends up in your brain, not very good. Ends up in your heart, again, not very good. Or you can get what's called a minor skin bend. But any form of decompression sickness is not good, and you want to avoid it. Diving to 10 meters, probably unlikely to get decompression sickness, but it's when you go deeper. Now, if you're a new novice diver and you've just done your open water diver or equivalent, ocean diver with British BZAC, open water diver with PADI and other diving organisations, you can dive to either 18 metres, which is about 60 feet, or 20 metres, which is about 66, 67 feet. And at that sort of depth, over a period of time, if your dive is long enough, you can or could get decompression sickness if you came up too fast. You start to go deeper, so you do your advanced diver training, so you can go to 30 metres, which is 98 feet. That's when you really have to start thinking about decompression sickness, because as an aside, every dive is a decompression dive. Not everyone thinks of it that way, but if you always think that way, then you'll always be aware and always be careful about what you do. And the reason I say every dive is decompression dive, the minute you go underwater, and let's say your minimum dive is 10 metres, you're under greater pressure. So nitrogen will be absorbing more than it would do when you're out in atmospheric air like you are listening to this and I am now. And the deeper you go, the more you're absorbing. So any ascent from any depth, you are decompressing. And the reason I showed you this and the bubbles is to highlight what happens. So all I did was this as it happens, this is just fizzy water. If you imagine those, the gas is suspended in that water, when that lid is tightened and the pressure is enough, the bubbles don't come out of the water, they stay in state. As soon as I release the top of that, which I'll do again, and you can see how as soon as I lift the top off, it's bubbling and all those bubbles are coming out of solution. That's exactly what happens to your body. So imagine if you went to 30 meters and you were there for, let's say, 20 minutes or so, your body will have absorbed all that nitrogen, and then if you suddenly shot to the surface, this is what will be happening inside you by the time you reach the surface. Your blood would have bubbles forming in it, your tissues, and if those bubbles go around your system and into your heart or into your brain, it can cause you serious problems, and it can go into your spine and you can get paralysed and so on and so forth. I don't want to frighten you, because as long as you dive safely, you dive within the limits and you follow these rules, there's no problem. I've never had a problem myself, but I understand the intricacies of this, and when I used to teach diving, it's something that I used to stress a lot to my students. So yes, that is the most important thing about scuba diving, alongside one other tip, and that is never hold your breath. Anyway, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you want to listen to more videos. My name, as I said, is Russell Bowyer. This is Scuba Diving Earth. If you'd like to find out more about any of these articles, go to Scuba Diving Earth. If you search on Google Scuba Diving Earth, you'll find us. And mask defogging and cleaning. If you go on there and you type in hashtag scuba fogging tips, one word, hashtag scuba fogging tips, in the search on Scuba Diving Earth, there's an article there that talks all about mask defogging. And if you want to find out about the risks of decompression sickness and what heightens the risks, again, if you just search on hashtag scuba DCS risks, DCS standing for decompression sickness, there's an article there which gives you the 14 risk factors of decompression sickness. Thank you very much for listening, and look out for new or other videos from me. Take care and happy scuba diving. Bye for now.